Hey, what's going on, everybody? We are here for another session. We're going to be talking about what is Web3. Oh, good. We can see 17 people. So as you can tell, we're just getting used to using AirMeet. Again, we had the speakers here, and we didn't all we could see were the speakers. So we only saw 5 people. We're like, where is everybody? So we're happy that you are all here. Please do us a favor. Feel free to tweet this or share. Feel free to take screenshots and tweet at us as well. But we're going to go ahead and get started with the session. We're going to do like we did last time, where we're just going to start out at the tables, and then we'll get right into what is Web3. So as kind of people come start joining us. So I'm going to end this session for a second, or pause it, I should say, and then go ahead and find a session, talk to people. And before we do, can people just write in the message section? I'd like to know, what are you having for dinner tonight? I'm going to go first. I'm having pasta. So if you're here, I want to know, what are you having for dinner? Oh, someone's fasting? Oh my goodness. All right. Fasting water. Okay, cool. So I'm going to stop this. We'll see you at the tables, and then we'll keep it going. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another one of our sessions for TF Labs, where we talk about Web3 and everything that encompasses, from blockchain to crypto to Bitcoin to NFTs. Tonight, we're going to be talking about what is Web3. So this is going to be a pretty entry-level type conversation. For those of you who are really active in Web3, you probably are going to be very familiar with the stuff that we're talking about. And we're going to try to keep it at a level that anybody who's new can understand. We do talk about more in-depth things as well, and dive pretty deep in other events. But my name is Jonathan. I'm the founder of TF Labs. We do conferences and events. We're also a startup studio. And then I'm also the founder of NIFMint, where we do NFTs for commerce infrastructure. So I'm excited for my guests today. Couple folks that I got to meet in that I've actually never met in person. Actually, everybody here I've never met in person, and the the pandemic allowed us to meet overall. And they're all working in Web3 in one way, shape, or form. But before we even get started there, I always like to get things active in the chat channel. Craig, I apologize that this sucks, but I hope you hang out for a little bit and have some fun with us. Do love the feedback though. But I'd love to know if everybody can just put in the comments real quick, what city are you at right now? Like, where are you listening in from? Go ahead and put that in the comments, and we'll get going. And then do also make sure that you're joining our other channels to stay in touch with us. You can join our Discord. Ross will put that up here. So first, I want to go ahead and welcome to the stage our first guest, or the first person I want to introduce, who needs no introduction, and that's Natalie Crew, the homie. What's up, Natalie? How you doing?
Hey, I'm glad I logged back in on time.
Thanks for joining us. You want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, obviously I'm Natalie, I hope, by the invite link I am. And so nice to see all the Austinites and folks from Nashville, two of my favorite places in the world. I am a culture producer, so I've been producing events and other projects outside of Web3 for well over a decade, but I've been in this space for several years as well. Part of Seed Club and M Club, some pretty hefty DAOs, and also Forefront, and have been educating and onboarding folks into NFTs, I think since 2016-ish. I lost track of time, but happy to be here with you. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Natalie. And let's go over to Akash. Akash, welcome to the stage. How you doing, Akash?
I am well. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks for joining us. You want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. So my name is Akash. I have been an entrepreneur for 30 years and had a brick and mortar retail store all of that time, as well as 7 or 8 locations out of that. And I had my own textile line. I did my own e-commerce startup with beauty brands. So I've been really in the lifestyle realm, building businesses, which requires building micro communities around those products and services. And I've been living in downtown Manhattan for all of my adult life. So I've been very, active in the New York City ecosystem between NYU as well as the startup community there. And just really excited about Web3 and everything that it brings, because it really brings human connection from the physical to the digital. And that's really where I'm most excited, is the synchronicity between the physical and the digital. So excited to have this conversation, excited to be here with Natalie and you, and can't wait to hear the other speakers.
Yeah, Natalie, Akash and I, we all met on Clubhouse last year. Do I have a bad signal, by the way?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
I hear
Okay,
you.
perfect. Great. Okay, good. And then last, I want to introduce Luke. So Luke, welcome to the stage. Thanks for joining us this evening. And Luke's working on some cool stuff. If you want to introduce yourself to everybody real quick.
Hey, my name's Luke. I'm the founder of Pixels Online. We're an NFT project doing virtual land and play to earn as well too. So we just recently minted an NFT, and we're kind of leading the space in a couple of concepts like interoperability, other things like that too. Really happy and excited to be here and talk about metaverse stuff and gaming and how that relates to Web3.
Awesome. Well, I'd love if we just kicked off the conversation by getting like just super rudimentary. And, how did you all just get into blockchain or crypto to begin with? What was, call it like your aha or your origin story into crypto? And I'll share mine at the end. And actually, for those in the audience, those listening in, I'd love to ask you all the same question. Like, what was your crypto origin story? How did you get in? Feel free to put that in the comments and we'll read that out too. Akash, you want to go first?
Sure. So I was at an NYU alumni day in 2018, and I had a choice of 3 classes, just like modules, and one of them was blockchain. So I spent about 5 hours, learning about all of the stuff about blockchain, and then didn't really do a lot with it immediately, but started to understand like what its capability. And then as that happened, I went to different conferences. I went to a Bitcoin conference. So it was cumulative for me, but I was introduced to it in 2018 through NYU. And then, everything else was through self-discovery and then putting the pieces together and then just by action.
Nice. University at its finest. How about you, Luke?
Yeah, so I have a dual degree in computer science and economics. But when I graduated with that degree, it was really funny because my professors actually hated Bitcoin. And I got like a lot of negative views on blockchain and cryptocurrency in general. So I didn't have like the most like high opinion of the space in general. But in 2020, I entered the startup scene. We were working on like a virtual events platform and a virtual space platform. And like really finding a ton of success with that. Airmeet actually kind of used to be like slightly a competitor, which is kind of funny. But we realized we needed to pivot at a certain point. We started digging like really deep into different opportunities that were present. The blockchain space, specifically crypto gaming or blockchain gaming, was extremely interesting to us, especially with the rise of Axie Infinity. We saw like a ton of opportunity in the space. It's like a ton of issues in the space too. So it was a really interesting place to pivot. And like with my background before, it kind of made sense to pivot into this space, and we've seen like a good amount of traction since then, and feel really confident about the pivot too. So it feels good.
Sorry, I was muted. That's great. I'm just putting some comments and questions in the chat as well, asking folks. Only one person answered how they got into crypto and Web3, so I'd love to hear from you all. I think you chose a good pivot. So over to you, Natalie.
Hey, so I had 2 friends in particular. I kind of dibbled and dabbled with crypto, was just basically trading it, was like I was just doing, I was in New York City at the time and needed a little bit of a change at the time. And so let's just say I lived nicely after crypto went up a little bit. And so, but I had two friends in particular down in 2016. They were in Malaysia and they were propping up the hip hop scene there. They were hyper involved with some social tokens before they were even called that. They were hyper involved in some blockchains and this whole like Web3 music thing before it sprouted to what it is now. And they're like, let's drag you around to these different places on the blockchain and explore like counterparty and all these crazy places, the deep dark crevices of the space. And I just followed them around for a number of years, seeing the stuff that they were doing. And that's how I ended up kind of being here. They were involved in the metaverse before it was a thing. They were definitely two pioneers that I was lucky to be in community with. And so they dragged me around to Steam It, and which is now Beehive, or forked to Beehive, and involved in NFTs and all this other stuff. And so I was lucky to have some incredible mentors and teachers to bring me into the space. So that's how I found out about crypto and NFTs. So yeah.
Nice. Love it. Love it. So for me, I found out about Bitcoin in, I think it was like 2013, and I completely ignored it. So I feel really stupid, obviously. But in 2017, my background's in e-commerce technology, so building integrations and kind of creating buying funnels and that sort of stuff. So when I started to learn about it in 2017 from a technical perspective, at first I thought Ethereum was really interesting from a fundraising mechanism during the ICO days. Luckily, I looked into it more and realized I shouldn't be fundraising as an ICO. But the tech got really interesting of how people can exchange value, and kind of like this notion of, exchanging value between participants and rewarding people, and a lot of the things that people try to do in commerce anyway. So I co-founded a company in the space where we were doing loyalty and rewards. But that was when Bitcoin got to 20K and then dropped to 3K is how we built that company. So that company ultimately failed, but then we've been doing some consulting as well as conferences since, and now we're spinning out some companies. But so on to the next question and the topic at hand, and that is, what is Web3? When someone asks you that question, you're at Thanksgiving dinner, and someone asks you, what is Web3? How do you respond to that? And same question I'd love to ask everybody in the audience. What is Web3 to you? Give us what is Web3 in 1 to 2 sentences? Who wants to jump in?
Okay, I think I define Web3 as the new generation of technologies that are utilizing like blockchain, cryptocurrency, or like tokens in a way that enable like really interesting ways to like share and stand for ownership, to align incentives, and to like give more equal like opportunity to like see the direction of a product, or to like vote in how a product operates. Kind of like democratizing general like product and companies.
Yeah. Natalie, Akash, thoughts?
I'll let Natalie go because I think she's going to say the word decentralization, so I'll let her go first.
Well, Marco already said it for me, so he gets a prize.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like one of my Pixelmon NFTs? Yeah, definitely decentralization, but also I think the most important, there's a number of pillars of Web3 and the blockchain, which you can get into another day. However, I think ownership is super key. I think transparency is super key to identifying what's Web3 and what's not. And I also think the idea around being able to dictate like what does your privacy look like in this space? Where does your data go? Like who gets to sell it is an important like key factor of the space as well. And so something that we haven't necessarily had in Web 2, where companies are freely selling our data to who knows who and who knows what. And so the space offers the opportunity to divest from that kind of paradigm and model and look at how we can do better to protect ourselves and protect our data and privacy. So, which may be important to some people or not. So that's it.
So I would say, like, I think like my way of describing Web3 tends to be on the more simplistic style, like side, because I think you can, like Natalie mentioned all these pillars, and I think those are all definitely important and they're part of it. But like when I define it, I like to focus on just two things, like the fact that it's basically with blockchain, that the blockchain is the, powering technology of Web3, which relates to transparency and decentralization through that transparency. And then I think the way that I like to explain it for people that may not know what it is that it's almost like a 3D version of the internet, which is a very basic way to say it. But then all of the things that Luke and Natalie said are all part of that, all of those details. But I think if somebody's trying to think about like what is Web3, it's the next iteration of the internet, but it has all of these principles that are both technological, but then there's also a lot of let's say philosophical things that this technological change brings that relate into social initiatives and how we live and the future.
I dig that. Yeah, I think of Web3. So it's interesting because the developers have been calling this Web3 for quite some time, but I really feel like from like a public view standpoint, Web3 has become popularized, call it, in the last year. Like I don't remember people publicly calling this Web3 until maybe like a year and a half ago, and before everybody was more using the phrase like blockchain and crypto. Put it this way, so TF Labs. And the TF stands for Token Forum. So we started that in 2017, 2018, and that was when tokens were pretty interesting. But then ICOs started to get kind of this bad rap. So we decided to stop calling it Token Forum and just reduce it to TF. And now people like tokens again. But when we talk about Web3, the way I think about it, it's really, call it the encompassing of these different elements. So at its broad sense, blockchain and different permutations of blockchain. So of course we have the granddaddy and the Bitcoin blockchain, which also kind of led way to other permutations like ETH and so Ethereum, I should say. And then everything that's encompassed within there. So from a technical perspective, to the actual cryptocurrency, to DeFi, to NFTs, all of that really encompasses what, from the Web3, from the infrastructure standpoint. But I do believe the way that people are talking about Web3, at least when you see it on Twitter or the news, is exactly what you all have said, right? Like this notion of ownership and how you get to participate in the exchange of value, and you get to be an active member of that and be in control, and kind of have like this dual party relationship as opposed to like a one-way relationship with the places you operate in. So this is my 2 cents. I know you guys didn't ask for it though. Cool. Well, also, by the way, as you can tell, I'm putting questions in the Q&A. In the thread there. So feel free to answer them. And as you have questions that come up, I do want to invite you all to put that in there as well. So, what are some good things that you're seeing in Web3? Like, what are some, I think a lot of times when you have these rooms, people talk about these really far out, like Web3 is going to be amazing for like when rocket ships go on this thing and then we take over Mars and then we all have our own stuff. What are some practical aspects of Web3 that you all find interesting right now?
Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, sure. So,
I'll
I mean,
start, yes, no one's,
I'm the
you want to go
moderator,
ahead,
right?
Luke?
Go ahead. Anyone.
yeah. Okay, so I'm involved in a bunch of DAOs, which I bet Natalie can talk about more. But there's like a really interesting social aspect to Web3 that is taking off right now, and I think that's like it's where a lot of the art and the culture is happening. There's also really, really interesting stuff happening on the gaming side too that maybe people aren't aware of with Web3 as well. For example, if you guys haven't heard the project Axie Infinity, that got really popular in like July, August. And there's really, really interesting things with that going on where there were like hundreds of thousands of people in the Philippines making like a living playing this game because they would play this game and earn a cryptocurrency playing this game, which is one of the like really interesting applications that like is coming out with Web3 in the area that I'm building in as well too. So yeah, DAOs, play to earn gaming, like NFT profile pictures, all that kind of stuff. There's really, really interesting things popping up here.
Yeah, I love it. I love the gaming side. I'm not a gamer, but I totally appreciate it because I just think it's mothers and fathers can no longer say, don't play that game. That's a waste of money. No, it's like how I make money. Natalie, Akash, what do you think is interesting?
I'm loving kind of what's sprouting up in the DAO space now that Luke brings it up. I think we have a long way to go in terms of shaping kind of how people are contributing to DAOs, how people are engaging with DAOs, and how people are quote unquote working in DAOs. But I think there are some DAOs, again, I'm a part of Forefront Transparency. They're figuring it out. But what I think is quite interesting is that a person like myself, who's typically overqualified for any regular schmegler job, can come in, contribute, find things that I'm interested in or want to learn, participate in a DAO however I see fit. I don't have to be there 40 hours a week and still get paid or get rewarded or incentivized to participate quite well, actually. And so for most of the DAOs, but what I also think is interesting, there's a number of DAOs that are like, hey, like I have this idea to build a decentralized music festival, or I have an idea around building a social impact DAO where we fund and engage in mutual aid with other people in the space, or trying to divest from traditional systems, and we can shift that with a small group of people and really look at things differently. And so people are solving problems and shipping products much faster than you would in a traditional organization or corporation. And so I think it's actually quite fascinating, at least the work that I've been able to do, and my peers as well. And so we're hearing a lot of women and Black and brown folks and disabled folks really come into their own and find themselves, especially within the DAO ecosystem. And there's hundreds, if not probably thousands of DAOs by now that are popping up and doing some really interesting things, from DeFi to social DAOs like Friends with Benefits to different types of DAOs as well. And so it's been very interesting learning experience for me. So yeah.
And a lot of this stuff is led by like, I don't know, like normal like Web2 or like normal artists too. Like Jay-Z owns a CryptoPunk. Like a lot of these like DAOs are being led by like some like really, really like well-known artists as well too. So it's like there's this interesting part of the Web3 that's like on the verge of like cutting edge art and like cutting edge like social circles too. That's like a part of this as well too.
It's interesting because I really enjoy the intersection of pop culture with the whole space, like what you're saying, right? So if you're gonna like, I think that part of what I love about virtual worlds and metaverses and just is like there's this make-believe element, right? So if you're somebody that's a dreamer and you like think about how you can create and you imagine and you make things up in your head, you can actually take those ideas and then you can figure out how can I take like my ideas that are in my head that maybe previous didn't have a way to actually implement. And you can be like, I'm going to make like something that you would think is absurd. You can actually turn it into something that would actually have a value proposition and function like within a world, even though it might not work in the physical world. And I really am excited by that because it pushes the boundaries of what an idea can be. And you can do things that would maybe work in the physical world only, things that would work in, say, the virtual world. And then you have this like shared reality of going back and forth. And what I really like, or a barometer that I use, is how do I feel? So if I feel like one of the things that was really fascinating to me was I fell in the water in a virtual world called Crypto Voxel. And when I fell in the water, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm swimming. And then, but then I actually felt relaxed. And I think the difference of like feeling like, because the movement of being in the water wouldn't let you move as quickly. So the slowing down of the avatar related to me as a physical human being. And I think that synchronicity of the emotion then makes me feel like it is a real experience of how you feel it, even though the tech or the tangible IP may live somewhere else other than the physical world.
I dig it. I dig it. For me, most interesting is, I'm biased, is the NFT space right now, but particularly, without sounding like a plug, I just really see NFTs as an interesting way to change how people think of products, how people think of inventory overall. And, all these brands and all these companies are really, over the last several years, have gotten more and more digital. And so the fact that you can do that, essentially that as an NFT, to me is what's interesting, because it's like, hey, would you rather have a JPEG, PNG, or some sort of MP3 file type, or would you rather have a file type that actually, shows, how many were created, the fact that you actually truly own it, that you have the ownership rights of it, so forth. And if you think about which one you prefer, I think we all would prefer the latter. So, yeah. I'm also a fan personally of just all the crypto payment type stuff. And, I think that's what's happening in Ukraine is pretty fascinating for a lot of reasons, right? Like the fact that as of last time I checked, I think it was yesterday, like $52 million has been sent to the Ukrainian government for funding the war, which is also crazy if you think about it, right? So like average citizens and who are funding war, like that's crazy to think about, and that crypto is facilitating that, because the week prior, with what was happening in Canada, with the government basically saying, hey, we're freezing accounts, and trying to freeze other accounts, and crypto really being this method to still transfer. So
yeah, I think the mobilization around like social causes or social impact is also quite fascinating. Even there's been situations where people have sent crypto to people in Venezuela. There's been situations where people were sending money to, I think they were doing like a protest in like Mexico City or something, and people are sending like crypto to them so they can keep up their encampment while they were protesting. And so people have responded incredibly quickly to address the needs that, to be very frank, some governments have not responded to at all, or just in trickles. And so this space offers an opportunity to really kind of address and actually create solutions collectively, whether they're in DAOs or whether they're in NFTs. There's been a humongous kind of response by the NFT community to support the Ukrainian and Russian artists, and as well as like the African folks that are fleeing as well. And so there's been quite an interesting mobilization around that, and it speaks to kind of the generosity and also kind of pace of the community. They're willing to kind of stick up for when they need to, degenerate aside. So
yeah, 100%. Well, I love seeing all the commentary in the thread here on the side. So the last question is, what's the most interesting aspect of Web3? And so I'm going to read what a few folks said. So Wendla said, I love the fact that almost anyone can get involved and you totally control how much time you commit. Crypto Ed says, take some basic understanding before one should jump into NFTs, but there are many hazards. Like he's giving us a warning, right? There are hazards and rug pulls. And, on that subject, actually, let's pause on that one for a second, because I think we should talk about that here in a second, because I think it is important. Ray says, DeFi yield farming with multiple exchanges is great for him. Tom says the anonymity. Yeah, so let's go to kind of what Crypto Ed is talking about here. So he says, take some basic understanding before one should jump into NFTs. There are many hazards, rugs, vaporwares out there. 100% agree with that. And this isn't a new thing, right? Like this definitely happened in the ICO days. There was actually a article that came out from Decrypt, I can't remember what the news site is. But anyways, that the SEC is starting to basically knock on the doors on some NFT projects and curators that either promise future value or basically, discussed, call it revenue and shares and those sort of things. So there definitely is some scams. Natalie, I know you are always looking out for folks. So what are some things that you see or that people can look out for? And, how do you decipher if there is something out there that you should avoid?
Let me whip out my list. I think do your own research when people are introducing you to their projects. And I know a lot of people will say that a million times, but take heed to that. Who are these people? I personally don't mind people being undoxed, but I know that there are some people, especially those of you that are new to the space, should be highly careful. Although I will attest to the evidence locker in our Discord for Bureau of Digital Affairs that there are a bunch of docs people who also engage in scamming and rug pulling. That's another conversation for another day. Somebody mentioned vaporware. There's also situations where people will drop a NFT, you'll open it, there will be an unlockable with a link, and you don't click on suspicious links. If you don't know, I get airdropped all kinds of wild stuff every day. And so be careful of links, especially on Discord. Close your DMs. Nobody that important needs to contact you via DMs. Your friends can call you. The mods can tag you in the Discord. So be hyper careful of that. If people have hundreds of thousands of people in their Discord and they haven't even started to tweet, be very careful, because there's a lot of people that use bots in this space as well to get up their numbers, and they use that to kind of mask the facade that they actually don't have a community. And so they'll have a whole bunch of bots typing in their Discord. And so there's a number of ways you can kind of listen to people and allow them to kind of drag themselves out, ask them questions. If they can't answer basic questions, what's their roadmap, who are they, have they engaged in other projects, and ask around the community, and people will kind of tell you. Some people kind of reinvent themselves and whole entire personas to scam you. And so just be hyper careful and use your due diligence and discernment, and be super careful. And I could go on and on and on for a week. Everyone's on Clubhouse for 10 hours talking about this. And so just be super careful and vet who you're going to be vet the NFT if you're going to be participating in that community, and don't allow people to promise you 5 years from now, this is going to be worth $1 million. Don't believe that.
The second people start talking about future value, that's a huge red flag.
Jump off the ship.
Anybody else?
I think the other thing, I think, just not about the scam part, but there's also projects that just have no value to them, that the project is so weak in itself that people often call those scams. But I don't think scam, I think, is intention, that you're out to get someone. There's a lot of projects that are just, the project is weak, the people don't understand what's required to go long term, and then they fall apart. And so I think people still have to be cautious of those types of projects, but I don't know if I would necessarily use the word scam as opposed to just weak project or poor project, poor venture.
Yeah, the space is getting better and better though. The bar was pretty low not too long ago, and you saw a lot of projects raise funding through these NFTs or other things like that too, who weren't ready to build what they promised, not out of any malice even, but just they were here in the space early. Maybe they're really good at marketing, but they're not good at building. But now that we're seeing a bunch of venture capital inflow into the space, and just the overall quality of projects getting higher and higher, that's getting a lot better, to be said too. But that's something that you need to be aware of in this space too. Sometimes the team has good intentions, but just isn't able to deliver because they're just inexperienced, or they don't have all the pieces together.
Yeah, we like to say, because it's funny, because we talk to a lot of NFT projects, and a lot of times they'll say we don't want to do a rug pull, or we're not doing a scam, and we always respond as yes, of course there are terrible people out there who have bad intentions from the start, but a lot of rug pulls are just people that fell apart and they're like, fuck this. This is too much work. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And they did that after they took money, or they didn't know how to spend the money. So yeah, if you're going to be a part of any NFT project, or basically, think about it like any product that you want to buy, period. If you were going to put a deposit on a car that you wanted to purchase, you're going to put a deposit on a car that you think is going to be there when it's ready, right? If you're going to put, money into, when you order food at a restaurant, you do that because you think there's going to be food there afterwards, right? So, the same thing applies here. Is you ultimately, even though people want to say that this isn't a business or this is just a project and like this is like this cool, fun collective thing, like there's business elements to putting this together. And if the people behind the project, one, lack that experience, I would rather them get that experience anywhere else, besides this first, overall. So I think you all are, Luke, you are right. There is some credible projects though coming out there, and look, I always admit this. I remember when Bored Apes first came out. I remember sitting in the clubhouse rooms, and I thought it was a scam. I really did. I was obviously wrong. And Bored Apes did really well, but I loved the art. I loved everything about it. But I was so, because of like ICO type stuff that I saw, I was like, this felt very similar. And again, I think it's an awesome project. Obviously, they've crushed it. And I wish I didn't think that when it happened, because I do remember being in those rooms. But what's funny is that we talk to a lot of companies and a lot of folks that want to do crypto projects, and they all say they want to be Bored Apes. And I always say, like, you're not going to be. So like, get that out of your head, be your best project, but you're not going to be them. And, do whatever you have to do to really grow your community. At the end of the day, you don't want to be using an NFT or any project as a fundraising mechanism. And it shouldn't be like, hey, we're going to do this and then we're going to do that. It's more of, hey, this helps us, do things better overall. What you got, Natalie?
Now, I was just going to say, don't be fooled by influencers pumping projects. I know a lot of brands that are getting into space, as well as people wanting to put up their own NFT projects, will pay people 5, 10, 15. I've even seen 20 ETH. I tweeted about this earlier today. Don't pay those people to
tweet today.
Yeah, I was real annoyed today. To be on stages to like pump up your project, because at the end of the day, when the ETH goes out and you're like done, your budget's done and spent, they disappear and don't stick onto the project. And so make sure you find people in the community that are actually aligned with your values, that resonate with your project or vertical, and hold tight to those people. Make sure you take care of them, but also just be careful of the influencers that are have thousands of bots and pump up their own. So yeah, be careful. It's a travesty. So yeah.
Most of these like Twitters of the NFT projects, see most of the Discords, they're like filled with like so many bots, where the numbers like seem inflated as well too. So that's something to be aware of. I feel like we're also focusing on like a ton of the bad stuff about crypto and Web3, when there is like a lot of good stuff too. Like I will say, in the last like 3 to 4 months, all of the smartest like founders I know, all the smartest like people in like FANG companies are moving into Web3. The quality of the projects are getting a lot higher, and there's so much talent moving into the space where it's super exciting. And the bar for like investment into the space is getting higher. The bar for like even projects that are getting funding through like NFT raises or like anything like that as well too, they're getting like a lot higher quality, and the space is getting like pretty exciting for those reasons.
Yeah, 100%. So, we're kind of tailing down on the conversation here. So I want to give people in the audience the opportunity to ask a question that we'll answer here on stage. And so we're going to do this a different way than we've done in the past. So if you have a question, even if you've asked it already, do me a favor and ask it again. And then if you actually want to come on stage and ask your question and sort of call it participate in the conversation, when you ask your question, put a hand raising emoji with your question, and then we'll go ahead and bring you up here and you can join in on the stage. One thing I always like to do when I'm, leading a conversation is I'd love to flip it on all of you. And like, what's a question that either you all have, or you're curious if for all of us to answer, or perhaps something that you think that we should all be considering that we might not be. Anybody? I feel like
We
no
have
one
a
wants to be the first one to start.
We have a question in the chat.
What would be some of the projects you would recommend for newbies to join just to have a feel for it?
So I'll go first. I think the projects that you should join just to have a feel for it, there's two projects I would recommend. The first, and Natalie's going to laugh when she hears this. The first one is Bitcoin, and the second one is Ethereum. And I want you to just start there. And if you haven't started there, start there and then start thinking about maybe like a NFT project or anything else overall. And then when you do start with an NFT project, I think there's two ways to look at NFTs. So for those that might not be familiar with venture capital, I think venture capital has a really interesting analogy here. So if you were going to invest if you're a VC, you might invest into what's called a pre-seed business, which is really early, like idea type stage. And those types of companies have the highest amount of risk. So meaning the majority of those fail. So if you're coming into a really, really early project, like at the mint, chances are it's going to fail. You obviously want to make sure you know who the project is, et cetera, and that helps its chances of success, of course. Now, if you come into a project that's at 5 ETH already, granted, you're spending 5 ETH, which is a lot of ETH to spend on your first NFT. But theoretically, if it's been at 5 ETH for a little bit, mind you, this is not financial advice, but that would be like coming into a more developed company, right? So in theory, it should kind of progress there. So that's kind of how I think about it. But I'd love to hear all your thoughts.
I think DAOs are one of the easiest ways to onboard into Web3. If you guys aren't familiar with what a DAO is, like a decentralized autonomous organization, DAO, would definitely recommend like looking into that a bit. But there's basically becoming like a DAO for everything now. And it's a really interesting way to like just form a social connection and get onboarded into the space. Like for example, I'm in a DAO called Developer DAO. That's like all engineers in it. It's like a lot of discussions where like there's like just like help for like onboarding you into like different Web3 topics or things like that. I'm in a DAO called Friends with Benefits, which is like more social. They have like a lot of events going across the country, and it's more just like music scene, like the DJs and stuff like that. Join that one. I'm in a DAO that's called Cabin DAO. They're trying to like build out tiny cabins and like put them all over the country. There's like a lot of really interesting use cases for DAOs that like kind of also align with interest and are also like obviously very Web3 savvy, that are an interesting way to onboard yourself into it, which also aren't like as financially big of a commitment either. And you can also join a lot of them for free too. Sometimes not even like actually token based. Sometimes it's literally just joining a Discord server or a Telegram. And there's very much like a Web3 ethos in them.
Yeah, I am digging Luke on the DAO tip. Definitely, it's a great place to just get your foot in and learn about Web3 straight from the people who are actively participating in the space, rather than spending a ton of ETH that you may or may not have at this point. And so even if you have it, just be super careful and vet the projects if you're going to be a part of them. I would also say there's a club on Clubhouse, if people are still on there, called Blockchain Gospel, and the guy that runs it, Lo, he actually sends new people a bunch of NFTs. He sent me 10 for Christmas, and so for free, just like onboard people and give them a taste of like what it feels like to own an NFT. There's other people in that community, like Land of NFTs, it also gives people tons of NFTs. They sent me tons of them for Christmas, and so half probably my NFT collection is from them, and they just send them to people for free just for supporting them. And I would also say just get involved in communities that align with your verticals or things that you're interested in. Like I'm heavily interested in like music, so I'm involved in a number of music DAOs and other projects and communities. And so you can start to explore and kind of niche down to like what you're interested in just by thinking about what you're interested in, what do you want to learn, who are the people that you want to meet in this space, and then you can find out where you want to go. Because I can give you a list of projects in this space, but really find yourself. One of my favorite DAOs, I'm not involved with it, but I'm digging them on Twitter, is Thirsty Thirsty. They're a food and wine DAO that just popped up, and I think they're incubated by C Club as well. And also Colors, which is a fancy, super dope music channel on YouTube. They also just started a DAO, which is incredible as well. And so, yeah, find your poison and pick it.
I gotta start looking more into DAOs myself.
Yeah,
Akash, any thoughts?
Well, I think the question was the question originally like how to get into an NFT. I think I forgot the exact question. So I think if we're specifically talking about NFTs, I'm a believer that you can get into, like Natalie mentioned, that you can get into NFTs without having to actually buy one. So I think the best way to start in specifically NFTs, I think, is to get a wallet. Like, and you can get it on multi-chain. You can get like, there's so many different chains, and without like, I'm chain agnostic. So like, I think some of the two chains that you can collect for free very easily would be like Polygon and Tezos, because they're just, people give out NFTs on those chains because of the cost. So that's one way that you can always start, with like that, and then watch and then think about, because I think once you add finance to it, it changes, because then it starts like, did I make any money? Did the thing go up? And people start measuring like investments. And I think you really have to think about, when you start, what are you doing to participating? Are you trying to build like a stock portfolio like that, where you just want to make money? Or are you trying to really understand what the whole Web3 ecosystem is, and then how you can participate? Because there's so many different points of participation. And I think what Luke and Natalie said about DAOs, and then even like these NFTs, like, there's so many different ways to participate, and finding the individual way for you that matches what you want to do in this wide space, I think really sets the tone that then you get excited and you want to do more of it. I think, and being accountable in the beginning of thinking that like, there's so much FOMO, there's so much like, like missing out and things, and you can't pay attention to everything. It's just impossible. So I think really trying to understand like within where you come from as a person and your work background and what you're doing, and matching that to how you participate is probably one of the best most advice that I would give in terms of like starting out is do it personalized for yourself, so that like so you can dabble and then learn more about what you want to participate in.
Love it, 100%. Natalie pinned in the chat. Here's the longest list of DAOs in the guide. So go ahead and click that link to Google Doc. Definitely sounds super helpful. And I know the question was like how to get into an NFT, but kind of in the whole of how to get into Web3. Since you all talked about NFTs and DAOs, I'll talk about crypto for just a second. There's some really easy ways to get Bitcoin or crypto for free and earn some. Granted, it's going to be small amounts, but if you just get someone to refer you to Coinbase, or go to Lolly, which is you get cash back or Bitcoin back rewards when you purchase things, or Fold. It's an app that you can get Bitcoin back when you purchase things, and so forth. So there's some interesting ways for those that might not have crypto either to kind of slowly start to put that together. Okay, well, I think we're kind of close to wrapping up here. So I want to give everybody a chance to give your final thoughts before we close this down. And then when we do close it down, we'll break back up into the tables again, and allow people to just kind of chat for a little bit, 5-10 minutes before we close it all down. But any last thoughts from everybody? No one wants to be first ever.
I would just say that I think the space is super exciting. I think if you figure out how you want to participate, and then once you find your groove, like, it's a super exciting space, because like we all live in it, right? Like the reality is we can't get enough of it. And I think it's just a matter of finding out where you like within the space, because I've seen a few people where they started off in the wrong vertical, where like maybe they weren't interested in, say, NFTs so much, and they were interested in metaverses or worlds or something like, and participating. And I think finding the way that you want to participate dictates how much you enjoy it. And the more you find that alignment, then it's truly exciting. I mean, I personally believe, like, I feel like this is a life-changing moment for me. And like, I've never experienced anything like this, you know, like digitally, and it's super exciting.
Definitely. Oh, I shared the link for rabbithole.gg. I want to plug that too. I'm not affiliated with them, but that's a really, really good way to onboard into Web3 if you're interested. It'll kind of like, I think it gives you like a reward for like doing certain tasks just to onboard yourself or like learn different skills about Web3. That's a really, really good resource. So if you're like curious about the space, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Yeah, I totally agree with you as well too. Like there's a spot for everybody in Web3. It's like getting so expansive now where like it's just like so niche. Like any tiny interest that you have probably might have a spot in Web3, and if it doesn't, there's also an opportunity for you to like go and create something there too. So it's really exciting.
Same. This space is super invigorating, and it's why I stay up for massive amounts of hours each day, just being here and being present. I think if anybody can give you a tip about this space, is to show up. The first thing you should do before even getting a wallet is show up, find people that you can be in community with, try to find different communities. There's, I don't know how many of them, there's tons of them, but find out who you resonate with, find out try to find conversations that really stick with you and are kind of giving you this, hopefully a light bulb moment. You'll eventually get that. But at the moment, try to like find that energy that you can resonate with, those people that really kind of like spark your interest. And that you can kind of find out where you land. Try to explore things that you may not be interested in. I'm not a fashionista by any stretch of the imagination, but I find myself spending a lot of time with the folks that are doing digital fashion, like Emma Jane at Digital Acts, and I find her super intriguing. And so just explore and give yourself space to experiment, and good luck, and feel free to, I can probably speak for everybody, reach out, and yeah.
Awesome. Thank you everybody. I appreciate
That's the amazing thing, is everybody's willing to help. Sorry, John.
No, go ahead.
There was a delay, sorry.
No, go for it.
I was just saying that we're all really, like, everybody in Web3 is super willing to help each other. And I think that's another thing, the collaborative element, that like, if you need help, most people will help you.
Yeah, 100%. I like what Natalie said as far as, you know, showing up. I think that whole showing up aspect of it is super important. And it's kind of like, I kind of believe that across multiple things, right? Like if you're present, you're going to learn little by little. And then, you know, it's kind of like learning how to swim. You might just put your feet in the water first, and then you get up to your ankles, and you get up to your knees, and then you just dive in. And so, a lot of people are still learning, and you know, just make sure that you're surrounding yourself around the right folks. And, you know, we're trying to do that for you here. So appreciate, all you speakers joining us. Thank you so much. For everybody in the audience, thank you for joining and being here. It's cool seeing a lot of you who've been here the last 3 or 4 times that we've done this. So do us a favor, please make sure that you are following us across the different channels. We do have our Discord that we're active in, and so that's a good way to stay up to date with what's happening. You can subscribe to the YouTube, where you can watch this video or other videos. We are going to be doing an NFT at some point. And so our NFT is not going to be a rug pull like people say. But no, what's great is we've been building community for 5 or 6 years. And so we just want to do some extra stuff for people. What's really interesting, in 2018, we actually created our very first NFT as a ticket stub for our very first conference. It was, and we just kind of threw it together, put it in a trust token wallet, and we didn't know what we were doing, or not a trust token, in a trust wallet, and we didn't even know what we were doing. And so, we'll be doing some more stuff like that, but really just want to make sure that we get you access there. The one cool thing about our NFT, though, is that you would get access to the brands that we're NFTing first. So anyways, appreciate you all being here. Natalie, Akash, Luke, thank you again for joining us, and hope to have you do other things with us as well. If you definitely, when these folks tell you that you can reach out to them, they do mean it. And if you lose their info, you can also reach out to me and I'll plug you in there. But they're all in our Discord as well. So awesome. Well, we'll see y'all later. Thanks again. I'm going to end this session. We'll go to the tables for a little bit, and then everybody can have a good night. So see y'all soon.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.